Hi, this is Maria Quattrone, and this is the Be the Solution podcast. And I'm so excited today for my guest, Greg Rushin. And Greg's childhood he was brought up in small town USA, was nothing short of idyllic. Life was wonderfully ordinary, even excellent. However, at the tender age of 17, tragedy struck, shattering Greg's world with the sudden loss of his father. Not only a profound blow to his family, but to the entire close-knit community. While many of his peers ventured off to college, Greg felt a different path calling. He remained rooted in his hometown, embracing the values instilled in him since childhood: hard work and dedication. Guided by his passion for dirt bikes and snowmobiles, Greg set out on a career in the power sport industry, starting in sales at a local dealership. He swiftly ascended to become the dealership's top salesperson. Over the years, Greg's journey led him to the helm of a thriving power sports business and eventually into a prominent corporate management role with a major manufacturer. It wasn't until his early 30s that Greg unearthed a transformative truth about the interplay between hard work and personal development. From that moment on, he immersed himself in the art of personal development, and the impact was extraordinary. Today, as a real estate entrepreneur, certified life coach, and the visionary force behind Rushin Motivation, Greg finds immense fulfillment in guiding others towards realizing their dream. Today, I'm proud to welcome Greg Rushin to the Be the Solution podcast. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you. I appreciate being here, Maria.
I'm excited to talk to you. Gosh, we have a mutual friend who introduced us.
That's right.
I was just listening to Jay on Dropping Bombs. He just did a video with Brad Lee, and I only got about 15 minutes through it while I was in my last appointment. I had some time to listen while I was waiting. So excited to hear that. I don't know if he sent it to you yet. It's on YouTube.
I might be a little further ahead of you. I had probably 25 minutes into it. So it was neat. It's neat to see people like you on such a large platform like Dropping Bombs.
Yeah, it's so cool, right?
It really is.
So, Greg, it's interesting how the dots all connect to each other, and how in this lifetime they would say you're 6 degrees from somebody else. So I think, though, it's more like 2.
Yeah, it's just amazing how small of a world it actually is when you start connecting dots, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It's actually extraordinary. It's super cool. And it's exciting.
It sure is. Yeah, it's always a journey, and it never quits.
It's always a journey. So how did you get involved in starting Rushin Motivation?
It was the start of Rushin Motivation was really by accident almost. And it started in the pandemic. I still had my corporate role, and my wife and I had started our real estate company. But I was sent home during the pandemic indefinitely, unworthy to do my job. And that's when it all started. To take a step back, when my wife and I started building our real estate business and just accumulating residential rental properties.
How many do you have now?
We're at 32.
32 doors?
Yeah. So by no means big, but it's big enough that it created quite a bit of difference in my life. And that difference was recognized by some of my peers and colleagues. And many people wanted to know how I did it. And I did it quite swiftly. I think we were at 34 units within about a 28-month span from 0 to 34. So there was a lot of difference in my life. And I think a lot of my friends saw that. They wanted to see exactly how I did it and if maybe they could do the same. So I went out on many different dinners and, can I buy you some drinks? Can I pick your brain? And I appreciated all that, but nobody really did anything with my advice. And I came to the realization that maybe it's for a couple of reasons. one, real estate isn't for everybody. And when they get in conversation with me, maybe they back out mentally and say, I just don't know if that's for me, which is okay. And also, when I started real estate, I hired a coach, and I came out of pocket at a dollar amount that was uncomfortable for me at the time, but I wanted to escalate it, and it certainly helped. So when I was sent home from my corporate job, I called my buddy, a good friend of mine, really good accountability partner for different projects in our life. And I said, Joe, I'm going to lose my job. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I'm sent home indefinitely, and I'm unworthy of doing my job. So
what does that mean?
Well, it was at the time, Maria, where the whole world was turned upside down. And at the time, I was not willing to get the vaccination. I didn't know enough about it. I had already had COVID, and I didn't feel that the vaccination was needed for me. So I was one of the few within the company that stood a firm ground. And because of that, I was sent home, and the job was traveling. I was in front of dealerships and working with their staff, with their general management and ownership. So I was sent home from a meeting, and I knew the writing was on the wall. My job's going to come down to it. So my buddy Joe said, well, what are you going to do? And I was thankful at the time that I had done everything that I've done in real estate, because I told him, I said, Joe, I really don't have to do anything right now. Not saying that the real estate has completely replaced the income that I want to be at, but I can think about it, and I can figure it out, and I can put something into place. He said, well, what is it you're going to put into place? I said, here's the deal. I want to start a coaching company centered around people that want to become bigger, more powerful versions of themselves, faster, stronger, think differently, act differently, and become ultimately something different. And I said, I want to share my story of from the time my dad had passed to current, everything that I've done in the journey I've been on. And I want to expedite the process, really specifically the personal development process that allowed me to grow into the person that I had become. So I want a legitimate business with the state that I can actually conduct billing. I want to be certified to some degree. I didn't know what that meant yet. And this was July 28th, 2021. And I told him, I said, I want all this done by the end of the year. And I want to have a legitimate business so I can charge people, because when I charge people, they're going to actually commit to the life change they seeked out to find. So that was the birth of Rushin Motivation, kind of by accident. And I hit that goal. I hit that mark by the end of the year. I was working with my first client. I was only doing nights and weekends because I still maintained my corporate job. So I was working nights and weekends. I had a website developed at the time, not the one I have currently, but it was a starting one. So I hit all my marks working with my first client, and then it just kind of grew from there. I started picking up.
How did you land your first client? Was it super? Did it just happen? Was it easy?
No, actually, my first client that I landed was an owner of an automotive dealership, and he wanted to go to lunch with me. And my wife said, "Are you going to go?" I said, "Why wouldn't I? This man has achieved more than I have achieved so far in life. I don't really know him, but he's somebody that I'd at least like to surround myself around." She said, "That's a good way to look at it." She's like, he's going to want you to run the dealership. And I said, "Yeah, probably." And we sat through an hour-long lunch meeting, and he never mentioned me coming to work for him at all. And so I finally kind of leaned in. I said, "I know this is why we're not meeting. Is there a specific reason why we're here today?" He goes, "No, I know you in the community as a go-getter, and you're doing a lot of good. And I just kind of wanted to see what it was all about." And it shocked me. And then we had another meeting, and that's when he dropped it on me that he said, "I'd like you to come work for me." And I said, "I appreciate that. And I'm very fortunate to have an opportunity like this. And thank you, but I'm kind of doing something different." And I gave him my Rushin Motivation business card. And he said, "Wow, so I might be able to hire you without actually hiring you." And I said, "That would be great." So that was my first client. I started working with some of his key employees within the dealership on personal development practices, as well as sales training, some other things that I've picked up along the way. And then that just led to a bunch of referrals, led to a lot of individuals contacting me. Then a new website got developed, and I started being on platforms like Jay's Culture Matter podcast several times, which led to more clients and different radio shows and speaking events. So it's been a really fun journey here the last year and a half, 2 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Funny how things work out when you stick to what you believe in.
Yeah. And probably a funny part of that is when my corporate job said, okay, we're done with all that separation. Everybody's the same. Everybody needs to go out and do their job. At that point in time, I was essentially about a year behind on getting out and visiting in the field. So I hit the ground running, and a friend of mine said, how's your coaching business going? I said, I got put back to work and I'm too busy for it. And she looked at me and she said, no, the coaching is exactly what you need to do. And I just thought for a minute, I said, you're right. It is. So once we got back to work, I also realized that I had all this momentum and nights and weekends with coaching. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm probably going about this wrong. So that's when I announced to my boss that I was going to be departing ways with the company. And it was mutual. It was great. It was wonderful. But yeah, it was interesting how it all played out.
How about that? What do you find that most people struggle the most with?
I think most people struggle the most with actually just believing in themselves. They get stuck in a rut that society has put them in, and they become very good at that rut. And for many people like that lifestyle, and I applaud them. I kind of wish I was like that. I wish I had a direction that I wanted to get educated in and become good at and just stick there, but it's just not me. It never has been. But people that are in that rut that do aspire to be something better and bigger than what they are, I feel they can't get out of it. And it's a form of a limiting belief, simply deeply rooted in the fact that they don't believe in themselves enough. I was one of them for sure for many years. And I think the real estate, growing that, and I didn't know anything about real estate, but growing that business really allowed me to believe in myself, believe that I can do bigger, better things.
Yeah. In the real estate side of it, so you're wanting to get into it, wanting to own properties. Do you have single family rentals or multifamily or?
A little combination of everything. I have some multifamilies, single families. The majority
so
we own.
That all went perfectly?
Oh yeah, it went perfectly, right? No, there were several bumps in the road, as there continues to be bumps in the road. Right now, I probably have a vacancy percentage larger than I've ever had. So that's a challenge.
Where are you at? Where are you at now?
Vacancy wise,
yes.
I have 6 vacancies out of 32.
Okay. And is it just because there's an overflow of multifamily or overflow of rentals at the moment, or?
That I don't know, but I probably wouldn't have those vacancies right now had I had the same selection process I did when I started. I'm a little okay with floating a vacancy for a period of time now, whereas in the early days, I was quite nervous about that. And I probably jumped too quickly, which led to probably more evictions than I wanted. So the reason why I have so many vacancies right now is probably a little bit to do with me and my selection process, more so than the market.
Okay. That makes sense. You want to make sure you have the right tenant in there.
Right.
And even if it takes a little bit longer to get a quality, credit-worthy tenant.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. What's been the biggest struggle with buying the properties? And you self-manage?
I do self-manage. I self-manage all but one property, which I met with the property manager yesterday, and I'm going to take that over as well. So I'll be 100% self-managed. And I think the biggest challenge of buying those properties is understanding all the different options we as property buyers have for funding. And that's when I really focused on becoming a good asker. And I think that as we develop ourselves, we want to make sure that we're good at asking. And I'll use one specific example. I wanted to buy a block of properties. There were 6 different properties in this in this city block that I wanted to buy. One real estate investor was selling all of them at once. And it was about $500,000. And commercial lending just wasn't an option for me because they wanted the cheapest, the least amount of money down I found was 25%. And 25% on roughly 500,000 was a dollar amount I didn't have at the time. And throughout all my personal development journey, I learned to continue to ask, continue to knock on doors. When the door gets shut, it's not the end. It's just not the right door. So I kept on asking and I kept on asking, and it led me to this huge circle of people that was phenomenal to get introduced to. But it led me to a bank that had a very similar mission in improving communities as I do with my real estate business. And we met and we hit it off really well with each other. Pretty soon I was borrowing that sum of money at 5% down with a very good APR. So sometimes the challenges we have in front of us, it comes down to continuing to ask. And that was a challenge that I had in the beginning. I wasn't sure exactly where to ask or how to ask.
Is that a local bank or?
They're a statewide bank in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Which one is that?
That's Bridgeway Capital.
I never heard of them.
Yeah, it's we've had a great relationship, and they want to continue doing projects with my wife and I, which is exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your goal in regards to your real estate portfolio, and how do you plan to get there?
I think my goal has changed over time. You know, my initial goal was to get to 100 units. And as we were growing, the pandemic hit, and it made buying properties a little bit more challenging, more so on the value side of what you were buying rather than on the funding side. I was having a hard time stomaching buying something that I feel I should be paying, say, 60 to 80 grand for, but it was selling for upwards of 200. It just wasn't mathematically working in how I evaluate a property. So my initial goal, I wanted to get to 100 units. And that kind of fell by the wayside when those values got out of whack. But it allowed me some time to reflect and maybe change goals. And I think my goal now is just wealth, long-term wealth generation. So I'm going to try and focus on buying the right properties rather than just racing toward a number. And the right properties are properties that don't need quite as much work to maintain. And I can maybe not generate as much initial cash flow, but I guess maybe in the beginning, I thought this might be a good opportunity to gain wealth quickly. But now I'm not so sure that that's exactly what I want to do, because I feel I could make some wrong moves. So my goal is just long-term wealth generation and continuing to add to my portfolio at a pace that is in line with the market and in line with my beliefs and how I want to do it, and not just chasing a number.
Makes sense. And do you look at deals daily, or how do you analyze your opportunities that come your way?
I do look at deals daily. I look at the MLS every day, but I also try and network. And that's something I'm really trying to focus on getting better at. Is there's a lot of opportunity that I just pass by as far as networking. I'm too busy. My coaching is too busy, but I want to make time for that, because there's a lot of, the apartment association here in Northwest PA is great, and they have a lot of events, and I've gone to very few of them. So I want to network and work on a little bit of the off-market deals, in addition to continuing to look at the MLS.
Deals are everywhere.
What's that?
Deals are everywhere.
They are, yes.
To ask the right questions. I always say, it's all about, not always about what you know, but who you know. And knowing, kind of seeing the future that's just not there yet. So having a little bit of imagination about what it could be.
And one thing I learned early on in life, and my first real estate coach also reiterated this, but when I was a kid and I was very into power sports, like you had mentioned in my introduction there, I would get upset if I missed out on a deal, a good deal on the right dirt bike at the right price, the right year, make, model, and I was too late. It sold yesterday. I'd get upset. And my dad taught me early on in life, don't ever be upset. There's always a deal. And that has held true in every aspect of my life. When I miss out on something, I can't get emotionally attached because it's just a deal and there's always a deal. And every time I missed out on something, that opportunity's always been replaced with something equally as good or better. So I try to leave all the emotion out of the deals when I'm analyzing and putting offers in on real estate.
Exactly. Otherwise, you can't fall in love with your real estate. It's a bad recipe.
Yes.
So I want to circle back on the personal development. I was thinking about something you had mentioned that one of the biggest things is that people don't believe in themselves. Is that something that you think that has always been, or that happened over time of just feeling like you've been beat up?
Maybe a little bit of both, but Maria, I think it's on a spectrum a little too, because you can not believe in yourself in one thing and believe in yourself in other things. And that's really where I focus on working with my clients is, okay, you're good at this and you believe in yourself for this aspect of your life or this thing that you can do in your life, but why not this other? Let's analyze that. Let's dive into that. Let's find out why you're good at something or believe in yourself for something, but maybe not the other. And typically what we do is we uncover a process that exists behind one that doesn't exist behind the other. And it gives me an opportunity to build that self-confidence with that individual and going about something that might be a little bit foreign to them.
Yeah, I can see how that makes a lot of sense. Super successful at this one thing, and then you want to do something else, but you're afraid. What if I fail?
Right.
What if you don't?
It's funny you mentioned those two what ifs. I gave a presentation yesterday at an entrepreneur event in my hometown, and that was a slide. What ifs? What if I don't? What if I fail? What if it doesn't work? What if I lose my house? What if I lose my car? What if? And that's another thing that I work with clients on is the what ifs. And I try and flip those. I try and put a different philosophy on that. And when you say the what ifs in life, it's better to back them up with a different outlook on the what if. What if it doesn't fail? What if I do succeed? What if I do fly? In real estate, what if I don't need a new roof? What if I don't need a new furnace? Then you think about different things. You think about maybe the potential rather than the detriment. And I think it's really important to kind of shift that philosophy and think about things maybe completely opposite of how you typically would.
Yeah, it's a mind shift for sure.
It is.
Does it work for most people?
Yeah, I think with most people, it really opens up their mind and they can kind of see a different perspective. And they see that perspective that they once thought has hindered them for many years, if not maybe their entire life. And it's a closed-minded way of thinking, and you don't think about the potential. You don't think about the possible good outcome. You just kind of shut yourself down with thinking about what could go wrong.
It reminds me of my favorite quote, Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, either way, you are right.
That is a good one. I love that quote as well.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Because if we don't change our belief, whether we can or can't, regardless, it's going to be either we can or we can't. So without changing the belief, we'll still be in the belief of whether it's a positive or negative. Right. And well, the universe doesn't really know the difference between the positive or the negative. They just give you back what you put out.
Exactly.
So that's something that, I don't know, I've always thought about. for a long time. Long time. And I always had a strong belief in myself. Whatever you put your mind to, you can do. And then I had like all this stuff happen, really, and it really like destroyed my belief in myself. It took several years to come out of that. Depression from the incident, depression from the shame, not feeling, worthy. All these things are real, true feelings and seem real, whereas some of them are really just made up things.
Right. So what was your success on coming out of that? Was there any specific area that you focused on to change your mindset?
It's a good question. I think that I just focused on saying, okay, forget about all this stuff. Let's get back to doing selling at a very high level. And because that's what I did really, really well. And so when that happened, it gives confidence. And when you're in a groove and you're doing stuff and deals are being made and money's flowing and things start to get better.
Would that shift have anything to do with kind of taking your mind out of what has happened and putting it forward into what has not happened yet and chasing that?
I think that just focusing on the actions and doing the action and showing up and doing the action regardless of the result, because we can't control the result. Yeah. We only control the action. Then set it up into, okay, out of that, poof.
That's so cool. I like how you use the words showing up too, because I think that is so important. And so many people struggle, but they don't just simply show up. Show up and get it done.
Show up and get it done. And people will say, well, I don't feel like it. And I say, well, feelings are feelings. Principles and standards are part of action. So focusing on principles and standards. If you have a principle and a standard that you are required based on what you committed to do X, regardless of feelings don't matter. They're just feelings. If people say, well, I didn't really feel like doing that today, I don't really feel like, or yeah, this thing. I said, well, if you were in principles and standards, that shuts down feelings. Yeah. Feelings are here. Principle and standards are here. And when you follow in principle and standards, you take the action regardless of what the result is, because we can't control other people. If, for example, you're selling real estate and the person doesn't want to sell, you can't change their mind. Well, I don't try to change your mind about selling. It's not I'm here to facilitate something that they need and want to get done. So I don't convince people to buy or sell. That's ridiculous. So you can't be upset for somebody not buying or selling because you couldn't convince them. You can give them facts and data to substantiate the right decision. And they need to be able to make on their own. But if your commitment is to say, well, I want to help this many families this year or this month or whatever, and these people say no, then you just need to talk to more families.
Right.
Because if you open up and you're in the MLS, if you open up the MLS and you say, what listed today? What penned it today? Well, there's deals. You didn't get them. Why? Didn't talk to enough people.
That's
any sales in any sales organization is math. It's mathematical. And if you take the numbers and you know your numbers and you say, well, before I would talk to 10 people and I would set 5 appointments or whatever. Okay, well, now I have to talk to 10 and I said 2. Well, then how many do you need to talk to get to where you need to be? Do the math. Lots of people fail to do the math, and they think that, you know, if it was always like this, it's going to always be like that, and that's just not the case.
Right.
So you want more deals? You look at more deals.
Even if you don't feel like looking at deals.
You talk to more people. And then when you get into the nitty-gritty of it, it's not just talking to more people. Can you talk to them like they're not a lead and like they're a human being? And you are a consultant looking for a solution, hence be the solution for them. And if you can find a solution to your problem, to their problem, excuse me, you will be rightfully compensated at a very high level. And kindness does go a long way. Sure
it does. Genuine kindness, right?
Genuine, of course. Of course.
Right.
You should always be in integrity.
Absolutely.
And I believe that, you know, being genuine is part of being integrity. But if you think about it like that, and you say, because people want to make all excuses, well, the market this, the market that, interest rates this. I don't know, go open up the computer and look at how many people bought or sold yesterday. They're still transacting. People are still buying. Poo-poo interest. Doesn't matter. Somebody's moving to, let's see, Florida. Retirement. Selling the house they own in Huntington Valley, here, suburb of Philadelphia. They've been there 30 years. That's a sale. They're moving out. They're getting divorced. They're getting married. Lifestyle. Somebody, grandmom, grandpa, somebody died. They'd sell the house. All opportunities.
For sure. Yeah, lifestyle events don't wait for interest rates or prices.
They do not. They certainly do not. So when I think, look, what does this have to do with the mindset? It has everything to do with it because it's all part of it. And you see people floundering right now in whether it's in selling or investing or, oh, I'm not going to do anything. The rates. Like if you want to do something, you can figure it out.
Right.
Everything's figure outable.
Everything's figure outable. It sure is.
Unless you have like a terminal illness, in that case, hopefully somebody can figure it out for you.
Right.
But we don't, I mean, talking like from a business standpoint, most everything's figure outable some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that figuring it out, putting the action in, showing up, it comes down to simple disciplines that you put in your life, and you don't negotiate with those disciplines. You have to show up. You have to get it done. You got to go there, whether you feel like it or not. Mike Tyson has a good quote, and he said, discipline is doing what you hate doing and acting like you love it. And I try and live every day of my life by that. You know, the disciplines that I have in my life, sometimes I don't want to do them. But when I do them and start, I just try and act as hard as it may be. I act like I absolutely love it.
Yeah. A lot of times people bring it back to feelings. And I don't feel like doing it. Yeah, nobody feels like doing a lot of stuff, but we do it anyway.
Right.
Because it's a discipline of it.
Exactly.
Right? And that's where I think that separates people.
It does.
I'm going to say the winners and the losers, but I don't like calling people losers, but I don't, for lack of a better word.
Right. No, you're exactly right. There's a separation there.
And it's getting greater further and further because I think that society has created a lot of lazy people, unfortunately.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, we see it in our industry greatly. But that'll be, you know, life is cycles.
It sure is.
Life is cycles. So I have a couple questions for you. I'm going to switch gears. Tell me guilty pleasure.
Chicken wings.
Yeah.
Hot and sloppy.
Ranch or blue cheese?
So I found this out because of chicken wings. I'm lactose intolerant, so I don't do any dairy.
Oh man.
I might get a side of hot sauce to dip my really saucy wings in, but I don't dip them in dairy. Not that I don't like to. So if you asked me that question a couple of years ago, I would have said blue cheese all the way. But I almost gave up chicken wings after that. Both. Absolutely both. I like them both.
You got to get that crunch going in there.
Yeah.
This to cool off the hot sauce.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And Greg, what are you most excited about the future? And you can't tell me anything that has to do with your family because people keep using that. So you, Greg.
Most excited about my future is being independent, as in the fact that I can operate both businesses, the real estate business as well as my coaching business, from essentially anywhere in the world. I'm not there yet. I have a lot of hands-on clients that I work one-on-one with, but there's no reason why I can't. And I see the light at the end of the tunnel. And there's property managers that are looking for jobs all day long, every day. And I could very easily turn the real estate over to a property manager, continue my wealth generation within that, but be completely remote. And that's exciting to me. I'm very excited about that because I do like to travel and see new places. And there's no reason why I can't work and do that at the same time.
100%.
Super excited.
What's your favorite place that you've been to?
Alaska.
I've not been to
Alaska and Hawaii. Two totally different places, but I like them for different reasons. They're both very just magical places.
Yeah. I haven't been to either. They look magical.
They are.
And what's the next place you're going to?
Well, I leave tomorrow morning for New Jersey to visit my wife's sister and brother-in-law and kids and my in-laws. But
whereabouts?
What's that?
Where?
A little suburb of, I guess, maybe Philly and Wilmington, Delaware. It's called Woodstown, New Jersey.
I know where that is.
So we'll be down there for the long holiday weekend. I'm looking forward to that.
Excellent.
But as far as trips go, we just got done. We did a trip to Negril, Jamaica, and then I did a snowboard trip out west to Oregon. So I don't have anything planned right now.
Well, it sounds like you're going to have a fantastic weekend with family.
Yeah.
Awesome. Greg, I appreciate you. It's so nice to get to know you better. And thank you for taking the time today to be on Be the Solution. And I'm looking forward to having you on again and giving us updates on your portfolio and what's going on. And if you got that remote going.
Excellent. Well, thank you. I appreciate being a guest, Maria.
My pleasure.